As of the writing of this video, Majin Buu is now returning to public relevancy within Dragon Ball. I know, shocking. Between his appearance in the trailer and concept art for Dragon Ball Daima, through the fact that the imp in the trailer seems to take personal interest in both him and Babidi, it's only logical to assume that the upcoming series might feature the pink blob in some capacity. After all, we had some heavy references to Frieza and Cell, so the only one remaining that I've less wanted would be Buu. We don't want to get into any leak territory or anything, so if you're interested in stuff like that, you can find stuff like that elsewhere. What we want to explore, however, since this particular video has been written so many months in advance, but in case Dharma comes along, is to do something more timeless. And as we've talked about with Super Saiyan 4 in the past, we kind of like to want to return to the source, as it were. I've already covered that information some years ago. There might be some retreading happening, but it's always nice to refresh what we've already established. So, without any further ado, and of course the help of translations from Kanzenshuu, because of course they are saviors here, let's delve into the beginnings of Majin Buu and why he might actually be Toriyama's favourite villain. So there is this well-known rumour about Buu being based on Fuyuto Takeda, that being of course Toriyama's third editor, known for being quite casual and lackadaisical with what Toriyama wanted to do. Was the editor from the appearance of Cell in his complete form until the final chapter. He is currently still serving as Akira Toriyama Sensei's editor. He was the model for the original Majin Buu, Mr. Buu. And then this snippet was the editor from the appearance of perfect form Cell to the Majin Buu arc to the final chapter. He is the individual who became the model for the original Majin Buu. It's rumoured that he's incredibly skilled at karaoke. How much truth is in this claim? Well, in the Q&A in Dragon Ball Forever, the author said this when asked about not having models for the characters. Come to mention it, it seems that there's a rumour that the models for Piccolo, Frieza and Buu are my past editors, but I don't really recall consciously doing that. No, they might be at the root of it. Perhaps I reflected them unconsciously. Apart from that, they say that there are a variety of models for the particular characters, but it's all lies, or rather, it's all stories I've never heard before. Laughs. I didn't use any models, although I did have a bit of a Bruce Lee-esque image in mind and such. For instance, with the glare on Goku's game face, I must have been thinking of Bruce Lee. Like, his face when he appears on the scene, enraged. Goku's usual eyes are hard to draw with a fighting pose. When he becomes a Super Saiyan, and there are actual outlines around the whites of his eyes though, I can draw him with a serious expression. Those times I had the image of Bruce Lee. In that sense, they were modelled. In that sense, there were models, but it's not the case that the people around me became models for the characters. Maybe their personalities, but I wasn't conscious of it. So as you can see, a lot of these stories passed through word of mouth might not be accurate to what Toriyama actually based these characters on. As for inspiration, Toriyama spoke surprisingly little about Buu. In fact, this might be the least covered villain that he did explain in the terms of covering his creative process. We do know that the rotund look has been in his mind for quite some time up until the saga, whilst looking at these concept arts from Daisenshu 4. One of the reasons related to this fact might be that the author had a pretty big creative freedom in the final arc of Dragon Ball Z, perhaps the biggest ever in Dragon Ball, as Takeda was known to be a more lenient and agreeable individual than his two predecessors. In fact, when Toriyama talked about anything Buu related, he tended to express a certain fondness for the character and what it allowed him to actually do. I'd imagine that thinking up the battle scenes would be hard each time. Yeah, with the battles as well, I couldn't have them do the same thing each time after all. It was already good at the beginning when Goku was tiny, but in the second half, when the battle started to gradually escalate, I thought up more and more amazing techniques. That's why it was fun drawing Majin Buu and Gotenks' fight. I thought up strange techniques in the spirit of a gag manga. Laughs. Could you tell us what battles you're fond of? When asked, Piccolo Daimao. Since it was the first battle with a truly evil guy, there was a certain something to the fight. And then he picks Gotenks versus Majin Buu. I think this was the first fight in a long time where I was able to do things my way. I drew relatively a lot of things like that during this period. And when asked if you were to draw another Dragon Ball, who would the protagonist be? Mr. Satan would be the one I'd want to make into the protagonist. How about a gag manga with him and Buu? The world grappling champion Mr. Satan, debuting in the second half of the story. He's a cute character who took off on his own. It'd be nice if this gag manga were to become a reality. He even mentioned something really interesting in his message on 2014 Dragon Ball's Kai Press screening. The final opponent of Dragon Ball's weekly serialization was Majin Buu. The final opponent is round, formidable, and tenacious. In the first half, the spotlight shines on the everyday life of Son Goku's son, Son Gohan, who wants to live an ordinary life but can't, as well as the first Tenkaichi Budokai in a long time. In the second half, Majin Buu makes his appearance in the mortal realm at last. It's a string of battles intense enough for even me, the person writing the comic, to get sick of. Now that I've become an old man with high-ish blood pressure and a taste for things mild, I can't draw these sorts of battles anymore. Or rather, I've lost the will to draw a battle manga from here on out. Buu and the Saiyans, who keep transforming to become stronger and stronger, and, to give out spoilers, the Genki Dama at the end, are parts to watch out for. But, as an author, I greatly prefer trivial character interactions. In particular, it was electrifying drawing the silly character Mr. Satan, contributing to the victory. And truthfully, a lot of us like to give the man flack about the Buu saga, especially about Gotenks vs Super Buu, especially the anime version, which cranked things up to 11, but honestly, even the manga version was pretty over the top. Right now, we can clearly see that from the creator's point of view, this was a rather pleasant experience, as Toriyama might have gotten sick of all of the battling and power scaling shenanigans. Making it more silly allowed him to regain a little bit more of that original charm that he himself felt way back when creating the series. And look, we're not saying that it's automatically redeems the Buu saga's issues in any way, but it gives you the idea of what was more comfortable for the author to create. And saying that he really enjoyed writing the Mr. Satan and Buu bits, and even considered giving it its own spin-off manga, that really gives you insight into Toriyama as a person. Come to think about it, maybe this is where Neko Majin got its beginning, considering a similar premise. Again, the relationship between the champ and the pink genie-like blob is one of the more precious elements of the saga, and even Mr. Satan haters, like Have, for example, whenever we have conversations, have to admit that it worked really well for both of the characters. So the search might be a little bit disappointing, as Toriyama wasn't really speaking all that much about Buu, like he had done with Frieza's inspirations or his frustration with Cell's spots. As far as the author was concerned, Buu was a highly destructive pink guy that he just liked to draw. Now, we can tell you all that bibbidi-bobbidi-boo stuff or go through the genie mythos, but we've been there, done that. You guys know that already. We don't want to waste your time. Instead, we decided to seek some personal connection between the man and his creation. And whilst not direct, they paint an interesting picture of what he meant to him. Still, to not leave out the whole lore aspect of the character, let's look at what has been established about the character around the 1990s and what has changed since. While initially introduced to us as the creation of the Wizard Babidi, chaotic, destructive, and hard to control, obviously, thanks to the sacrifice of the Grand Supreme Kai, he became the rotund self we know and love today. It's also worth remembering that Bibbidi was the one to seal it, and actually was glad that the creature became more controllable. In 2014, however, Toriyama had slightly changed our view on the monster. How did Bibbidi make Majin Buu? What process was there? What were Buu's ingredients, etc.? Toriyama says, though in the manga Kaioshin said that Bibbidi made him, the truth is that one called Buu was not actually created by Bibbidi, but had existed since time immemorial. He cycled between rampages and long hibernations. During numerous iterations of this cycle, he absorbed the evil elements of mankind, becoming steadily more violent. Bibbidi merely knew the means of calling Buu from out of his long slumber. Since the current Buu is a slightly different life form due to the changes brought about when the evil Buu was expelled, it's not known whether he'll still go into long periods of hibernation. Majin Buu is invincible, but where does he get his energy from? It can't be all from that candy he eats, can it? He doesn't particularly need energy, it's just that he likes candy. By the way, since the bad Buu was pure evil, he was easily purified in the afterlife and was able to be reincarnated as Oob right away. Please tell us, quietly, the spell that Bibbidi left behind in his notebook to seal away Majin Buu. It's unpronounceable for humans. Putting it into letters, I guess it'd be something like Nuem Witsimwawewe, which is a current statement because this makes him more like a certain movie villain that was clearly inspired by Buu and is also pure evil. Still, it is interesting that Toriyama had something in mind when it comes to the character, and maybe we will see certain elements of this in Dragon Ball Daima. After all, a lot of the stuff that he stated in his later years made it to later productions, so maybe with his supposed final opus, we'll get a better insight into this creature. Maybe seeing his fondness for Buu, we'll be able to appreciate it in a different way, or at least be excited if some new lore is revealed about him. It's hard to say, but it's always nice to make these deep dives regarding Toriyama's relationship to his work. Once again, thanks to Kanzenshu for being the place to get all of the translations for the interviews. We heavily encourage you to give them a read yourselves. But until then, I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!